So I'm going to start. So hello everybody, my name is Camille Henriet, as you said. I study actual and past botany, both in field and lab environments. I'm currently in Montpellier University for my PhD, working in the Institute of Evolutionary Sciences. And I'm interested in the vegetation dynamics that happened since the late glacial, that is to say, understanding a 15,000 years history of the local plants. So I'm going to talk about this work, which focuses on the palynological indices of the human influence on the dynamics of the Canroute peatland in the southern Massif central of France. Uh, so, so first, let's define the object of the study. What is a peatland? So here you have the example of the Canroute peatland that I studied. So peatland are a type of wetland. They are characterized by full-time immersion in water and subsequent anoxia. This anoxia leads to an incomplete decomposition of organic matter, which is called peat. So these ecosystems are of strong conservation interest and provide major ecosystem services. They play a huge role in water supply and hydrological regulation, water purification. They act as carbon sinks and are first-class biodiversity reservoirs. So now, where is our site? So the Canroute peatland is located in the Mont de la Cône, in the southern part of the French Massif central. This peatland is one of the most remarkable peat-forming habitats of the Massif. Indeed, it has an exceptionally long sequence for the area. That is the only record of the late glacial period in the region. So, how to study its history? Well, in this study, a peat core was sampled in the deepest part of the peatland. So in the first time, the core was dated using radiocarbon method, and in the second time, a preliminary study of the fossil pollen contained in the peat was conducted to identify possible past human impacts on the local peat-forming vegetation. So here you have the kind of diagram that we can produce with this kind of analysis. So here's a simplified version that shows the pollen of the site. So on the y-axis, you have the ages in years cal BP, and you can see that we have a record of the peatland for the 50,000 years before present. On the top, you will find the pollinic taxa that were identified in the core, and at the bottom are the relative percentages for each taxon. So now let's have a closer look at the diagram to determine the big phases and changes in the vegetation dynamics. So first, we can, the first period is located between 15,000 and 30,500 years before present. It is defined by plants of the Cyperaceae family that look like the photo on the right. So they defined a sedge peatland, and here's what the landscape could have looked like. It's a very wet and flat environment. The second period is defined by two taxa, Filibandula and Successa pratensis, that you have on the right. They are indices for a megaforb community that could have emerged around 30,500 to 30,500 years ago, and that is characterized by a large number of broad-leaf plants as shown in the picture. The third stage is a well-structured peatland, including Calluna vulgaris and Sphagnum mosses, that extends from 7,000 to 4,500 years. These plants form mounds up to a meter high, which makes it very difficult to walk in. And the last phase is characterized by an increase in Betula and Alnus pollen, which reveals the local installation of a swamp around 4,500 years ago. These taxa are indices for changes in the surrounding mesophilous vegetation and show a synchronicity with the local vegetation dynamics. So this suggests that some common factors affected both the site and the watershed and the peatland scales. So now let's move to the human impact on the site. So we first found Plantago pollen, which is a well-known grazing pollen indicator. It is recorded as irregular occurrences since 7,000 years before, and shows a continuous signal since 5,700 years. So this is quite strong evidence for grazing on our site. Finally, at a later stage, around 2,700 years before, the simultaneous increase in Glyceria tip, that includes Avena and Ordeum on the right, Rumex, Cichorioidae, and Plantago, is a testimony for the extension of agriculture and grazing in the surroundings of the peatland during the Iron Age. So here is a summary of the main changes in the vegetation on the left and in the human impacts on the right. So here you have the first human impact. And here is the vegetation change with possible anthropic cause. So we can see that there is an afforestation, like an increase of the number of trees, that takes place after the first local anthropic activities. It is also contemporary to a change in the nearby forest, which suddenly transforms from an oak forest to a beech-fir forest. And this suggests that the local evolution on the tree cover was partly influenced by human activities. As a conclusion, we see that very recently, the 20th century agropastoral practices likely opened to the previously treated peatland and likely have an impact on the composition and dynamic of the site. In the end, I need to insist on the fact that these interpretations are based on pollen records only and need to be confirmed by other methods such as sedimentology, macro remains, and coprophilic fungi investigations, which will be part of my PhD work. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm looking forward to hearing your questions.